Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The sun had just dipped below the treetops, spilling its last golden light over the grounds of Hogwarts. The castle windows glowed with warmth, but beyond its safety stretched the shadowed expanse of the forbidden forest, a place of whispering leaves, hidden eyes, and ancient secrets. It was there, just at the edge of that tangled wilderness, that Rubeus Hagrid stood with his lantern held high, squinting into the gloom. "Strange this is," he muttered, brushing his tangled hair from his face. "Unicorn tracks where they shouldn't be, and some it's been scaring the centaurs too." The half-giant gamekeeper bent down, his enormous hand brushing the soft earth. The ground was torn up, gouged by something large, something with claws. He frowned. Even after all his years caring for magical creatures, this was unlike anything he'd seen. From behind him came the low, worried whine of Fang, his faithful boarhound. "Aye, I hear it too," Hagrid murmured. The forest was quieter than usual, not the natural stillness before nightfall, but a heavy, uneasy silence, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. A rustle to the left made him spin, raising his lantern. A blur of movement vanished between the trunks. He caught only the glint of eyes and the sound of heavy, dragging steps. Then all was still again. The next morning, Hagrid trudged up the stone steps to the castle. Professor McGonagall was waiting in her office, her emerald robes crisp as ever. "Hagrid," she said without preamble, "there have been reports from the centaurs. They claim something dangerous is lurking deep in the forest. 3 unicorns are missing." Hagrid's brow furrowed. 3? That's bad news, that is. Unicorns don't just vanish. "Precisely," McGonagall replied. "I trust you'll investigate, but do be cautious. Whatever it is, it has the centaurs uneasy, and that is saying something." Hagrid gave a firm nod. "Don't you worry, Professor. I'll find out what's going on." He gathered his things, crossbow, lantern, and a thick leather coat patched in a dozen places, and set out at dusk once more. The air was damp and cold, the mist curling low around the roots of the trees. As he stepped beneath the first boughs, Hogwarts disappeared behind him, swallowed by fog. He followed a narrow trail marked by bent ferns and broken branches. The scent of smoke drifted faintly through the air, sharp and strange in the damp forest. "No campfire should be this deep," he murmured. Fang padded beside him, ears flat. After nearly an hour, they reached a clearing. There, amid scorched earth and blackened stones, lay a half-burnt log, and beside it, something glimmering faintly in the dirt. Hagrid crouched down. It was a scale, large, metallic, and warm to the touch. His heart leapt. "Blimey," he whispered, "dragon." But dragons didn't live in the Forbidden Forest. Not naturally, and no dragon, certainly none small enough to leave a single clawed trail, should be anywhere near Hogwarts. He straightened slowly, eyes scanning the shadows. Who'd be daft enough to bring a dragon here? A twig snapped. Hagrid froze. Fang growled, low and deep. Out of the dark stepped a figure, tall, proud, and silver-eyed. A centaur. "Hagrid," said the centaur in a low voice, "you tread close to danger tonight." Hagrid inclined his head. "Farron," he said, recognizing the creature, "I was hoping to find you." "You seen what's been causing the trouble?" Farron's eyes flicked toward the east. There is fire beneath the trees, and the stars speak of blood. A creature not born of this forest hides among us. The herd wishes no part in it. Reckon it's a dragon? Hagrid said. But I don't see how one could have come here on its own. Nor do we, said Pharaon. But the signs are clear. Whatever it is, it suffers. And if it is not found soon, it will bring ruin upon us all. Before Hagrid could reply, a deep rumbling echoed through the woods, like thunder but closer. The ground trembled beneath their feet. A gust of hot wind rolled through the clearing, carrying with it the smell of ash. Fang barked wildly. In the distance, flames flickered through the trees. "Stay back," Hagrid shouted as he ran toward the light, crashing through ferns and brambles. The heat grew stronger. Then he burst into a hollow glade and stopped short. There, half hidden by a fallen tree, lay a dragon. It was small, barely the size of a horse, but clearly young and wounded. Its scales shimmered bronze and gold, streaked with soot. One wing was torn, its edges blackened by fire. The creature gave a weak, shuddering growl as Hagrid approached, its eyes, bright amber, filled with pain, locking on his. "Easy now," Hagrid said softly, setting down his lantern. "I'm not here to hurt you." The dragon's tail twitched. A puff of smoke rose from its nostrils. Fang whimpered and backed away, but Hagrid stepped closer. "Poor thing. What have they done to you?" he whispered. He could see iron bands around its forelegs, broken chains scorched by heat. Someone had kept this dragon captive, and someone had set it loose or abandoned it right here in the forbidden forest. A twig cracked behind him again. He turned, but there was no one. Only the trees, silent and watchful. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. "Don't worry," he said to the dragon in a low voice. "We'll get you safe, we will. No one's hurting you again." But even as he spoke, a shadow moved among the trees, silent, deliberate, watching him. And as the moon rose higher, its pale light fell across the scorched clearing, revealing something carved into the earth near the dragon's chains. A rune, black and burning faintly, a mark of binding and of dark magic. Hagrid's eyes widened. "Oh no," he breathed. "This ain't just a lost dragon. This is something else entirely." The forest rustled. Somewhere far off, a horn sounded. A warning from the centaurs. And Hagrid knew deep in his chest that this was only the beginning. The dragon stirred at last, its breath rasping through the mist. Each exhale came with a faint shimmer of sparks that drifted up into the cool night air before fading into darkness. Hagrid crouched beside it, his great hand hovering uncertainly over the creature's flank. "Easy now," he murmured again. "You're safe with me." The dragon's eyes flicked toward him, suspicious, wary, but it did not strike. That, at least, was something. Its scales glowed faintly in the lantern light, a deep bronze flecked with gold, like sunlight caught in metal. Hagrid recognized the breed almost at once. "Norwegian Ridgeback," he muttered. "But that can't be right. Norberta was the only one I ever saw this close to Hogwarts." The creature gave a low, throaty rumble that shook the ground. It was weak, yes, but alive, and frightened. Hagrid's heart ached at the sight. Whoever had brought this dragon here had treated it cruelly. The broken chains still glowed faintly from the heat of its own fire. Fang crept closer, tail tucked, whining softly. The dragon's gaze shifted to the dog, nostrils flaring, but it did not attack. Instead, it shuddered and laid its head upon the earth, exhausted. Poor thing, Hagrid whispered. He reached for the edge of one broken shackle. The metal burned even through his thick gloves. Who'd do this to you? Behind him, the forest creaked. A branch snapped. He turned sharply, crossbow raised, but there was only the dark, endless wood. Still, that uneasy feeling pressed at him, the sense that unseen eyes followed every move. He worked quickly, pulling a thick blanket from his pack and draping it over the dragon's back. "We'll get you some water, and I'll see to that wing." But before he could take another step, Farron the centaur emerged once more from between the trees. The moonlight gleamed upon his silver mane and the curve of his bow. "You found it?" Farron said softly. "Aye," Hagrid replied. "Poor thing's hurt bad. Chained, too. Someone's been keeping it prisoner." The centaur studied the dragon, his expression unreadable. "There's more to this than cruelty, Hagrid. The stars burn with unrest. I see a shadow that stretches beyond these woods." "Meaning what, exactly?" "That this is not where the creature's story began," Farron said, lowering his gaze to the scorched earth. "Nor will it end here." Hagrid frowned. He'd heard enough of the centaur's riddling talk to know it was never for nothing. Still, the creature before him was flesh and blood, not prophecy. "All I know is she's hurt and needs help. I'll take her to the clearing by me hut. Can patch her up there till I figure out what's going on." Farron shook his head. "No, the forest watches you now. To move her through it is to draw eyes you cannot see. The mark upon the ground," he gestured toward the rune that still smoked faintly among the roots. "It binds her not just by iron, but by magic. If you cross the boundary with her, the spell will follow." Hagrid grimaced. "Blast it! So I can't even move her?" "Not until the seal is broken, and that will not be simple." A long silence fell between them. The night grew colder. The dragon's breathing slowed. "All right," Hagrid said at last. "Then we'll stay. But I'm not leaving her out here alone." He set to work, building a small fire at the edge of the clearing, careful to keep it well away from the wounded beast. He melted snow in a pot and poured cool water over the dragon's wing. The creature hissed but did not strike. Slowly, its trembling eased. Farron remained at the tree line, watchful, his eyes lifted often to the sky as though reading messages hidden in the stars. When Hagrid looked up, he saw only clouds. As the night deepened, other sounds drifted through the forest, the distant howl of wolves, the whisper of wings, and once, the faint toll of something metallic, far away. When dawn broke pale and gray, Hagrid felt the weight of the night still heavy on his shoulders. The dragon stirred again, lifting its head. For the first time, he saw a flicker of trust in its gaze. "That's it, girl," he murmured. "You'll be right as rain soon." He stood and stretched, his bones creaking. "I'll nip back to the castle, get some help. Won't be long." "Do not delay," Farron warned. "Whatever bound that creature may seek to reclaim it. When the sun sets again, the runes will awaken." That sent a chill through Hagrid. He nodded once and turned toward the edge of the forest, Fang at his side. But as he left the clearing, he could not shake the image of that mark burned into the soil. A symbol shaped like a serpent, swallowing its own tail. Back at the castle, the morning had barely begun. Smoke rose from the chimneys, and students hurried to breakfast, laughing in the crisp air. To them, the world was safe and ordinary. Hagrid envied that. He strode straight to McGonagall's office. She looked up from her parchment as he entered, eyes narrowing slightly. "Well, Hagrid, it's a dragon, Professor. Young one. Wounded bad. Her quill froze mid-air. A dragon? In the Forbidden Forest? Aye, and not by accident. Someone brought it there, chained it too. There's dark magic involved. McGonagall stood, her face grim. Do you know who? Not yet, but there's something strange about it. It's marked, bound by a spell I don't recognize. Centaur says, moving it could be dangerous. She paced a moment in silence, robes whispering. We cannot risk the Ministry finding out, she said finally. They'd send their own investigators, and you know how they handle creatures they don't understand. Hagrid nodded darkly. Poor thing wouldn't stand a chance. Then do what you can, McGonagall said. Discreetly, but be careful, Hagrid. If this magic is what I think it might be. She did not finish the thought. When Hagrid returned to the forest, the sky was already dimming. A soft drizzle fell through the branches, and the air smelled of moss and rain. But when he reached the clearing, the fire was cold. The dragon was gone. Faron? He called, voice echoing among the trees. Faron. No answer. Only the drip of rain and the distant croak of ravens. Then he saw it, a trail of scorched earth, leading north. Whatever had taken the dragon had dragged it away. Fang barked sharply, nose to the ground. Hagrid followed the trail, heart pounding. The marks cut deeper into the soil the farther he went, as though the creature had fought to free itself. At last he reached a glade ringed with ancient stones. The air shimmered faintly with heat. In the center stood the same rune, larger now, glowing with inner fire. And there, kneeling beside it, was a figure in a dark cloak, wand raised. Hagrid froze. The figure turned. Pale eyes met his. Well, said the stranger softly, you found me faster than I expected. Before Hagrid could move, the rune flared, blinding white, and both man and dragon vanished into the light. No! Hagrid roared, running forward. But it was too late. The clearing was empty, only the scent of smoke remained. And somewhere, far beyond the forest's edge, thunder rumbled again, like the beating of enormous wings. The next morning dawned cold and gray, the mist hanging low over the castle grounds like a shroud. From his hut at the edge of the forest, Hagrid stared into the gloom, his great hands wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold long ago. His eyes were fixed on the tree line. The fire still burned low in the grate behind him, yet a chill clung to the air that no flame could drive away. The dragon was gone, spirited away, in a blaze of strange magic. And worse still, someone had been there to take it. A wizard, not a student, not some hapless wanderer, but a skilled hand who'd known how to work that rune. Hagrid's stomach clenched at the thought. Whoever they were, they'd planned this. He rose at last, setting the mug aside. Fang gave a soft whimper from under the table, sensing the tension in his master. Aye, boy, Hagrid said quietly. We're going back. Can't just sit here while the poor creature's out there hurt and scared. He gathered what he needed, a small pack of supplies, a lantern, and his crossbow, and stepped out into the mist. The morning air was thick with the smell of damp earth. The forest loomed ahead, its great branches heavy with dew. He crossed the first line of trees, the world dimming instantly, as though he'd stepped beneath an ancient veil. The path was slick with mud, the silence broken only by the rustle of unseen things moving in the brush. Hagrid's boots sank deep into the moss, and his lantern threw flickering light upon the trunks, making their shadows twist and sway like living shapes. The glade where the dragon had lain was cold now, the scorched ground damp with rain. The rune had faded, leaving behind a faint scar of blackened roots. Hagrid knelt beside it, touching the soil. It pulsed faintly beneath his fingers, as though something dark still slept there. Farron appeared again, stepping soundlessly from the shadows. His silver mane gleamed even in the dim light. "You return," the centaur said. "I feared you would." "Aye," Hagrid muttered, rising to his feet. "She's gone. Someone took her. You seen what happened?" Farron's gaze drifted to the ground. "I saw the light from afar, fire and wind together, then nothing. The stars clouded over. It was as if the heavens themselves hid their faces." "Any idea where they went?" "The trail leads north, toward the old ruins by the river. But beware, Hagrid. That place has been silent for centuries, and not without reason. Even my kin avoid its shadow." "That's where I'll start, then," Hagrid said firmly. "Thank ye, Farron." The centaur hesitated. "If you go quickly. The creature is bound by power beyond mortal craft. The longer it remains in that spell, the more it will change." "Change?" Hagrid frowned. "What do you mean, change?" Farron's eyes darkened. "Magic leaves its mark even upon dragons. What was bound may not wish to be freed." The words followed Hagrid long after the centaur had vanished into the mist. By midday the forest had grown darker, the light barely reaching the mossy ground. Hagrid pressed on, following the faint traces left behind. Scorched bark, broken branches, the scent of smoke carried on the wind. Fang stayed close to his heels, ears flat. The ruins came into view at last, the shattered remains of an ancient keep, half swallowed by ivy and time. Crumbling walls rose out of the earth, their stones slick with moss. Once, long ago, this might have been a watchtower guarding the northern edge of the forest. Now it stood silent and hollow, its windows like blind eyes staring into the mist. Hagrid approached cautiously, crossbow ready. The air smelled faintly of ash and iron. Inside, the shadows thickened. His lantern light revealed broken stairways, toppled stones, and strange marks scorched into the walls. The same serpentine rune as before. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. He followed the sound of breathing, slow, heavy, pained. Then he saw her. The dragon lay chained once more in the heart of the ruin. The metal links glowed dull red, and her scales shimmered with feverish light. But something had changed. Her eyes, once golden, now burned orange-red, and the air around her rippled with heat. "Oh no," Hagrid whispered, stepping closer. "What have they done to you now?" A voice echoed from the shadows. "I warned you not to interfere." The cloaked figure stepped into view, wand in hand, his features still half hidden beneath the hood. Hagrid raised his crossbow, his voice rough. "Who are you? What have you done to her?" "I saved her," the man said quietly. "From hunters, from cages, from your ministry's blades. You think they'd spare her if they knew?" "That ain't savin'," Hagrid thundered. "You've got her bound in cursed chains." The man's voice hardened. "It's the only thing keeping her alive. The spell slows the venom spreading through her blood. Without it, she'll burn herself from within." Hagrid blinked. "Venom?" "She was poisoned," the man said, "by her own kind. She's not meant to live here. She's a hybrid, bred in secret, and when the others found out, they turned on her. I was there. I tried to free her, but she fled before I could finish the cure." He lowered his wand slightly. "I brought her here to save her, not to harm her. But your arrival has made things difficult." Hagrid hesitated. The man's words rang strangely true, but he couldn't ignore the dark runes, the scorch marks, the fear in the dragon's eyes. "I don't trust you," Hagrid said. "But if what you're saying's true, then help me fix it. Let's take her to the castle. We've got healers, wards." "No!" The man's shout echoed through the ruin. "If you bring the ministry here, they'll kill her on sight. She's illegal, an abomination in their eyes. You know what they did to the last hybrid they found." Hagrid faltered. He did know. For a moment, neither spoke. The dragon gave a low groan, smoke curling from her nostrils. The man turned back to her, pressing his wand to one of the glowing chains. "It's spreading faster," he muttered. "If I can't stabilize her, the forest will burn before sunrise." Then, without warning, the dragon thrashed violently. The chains snapped. Fire exploded through the hall, licking across the stone like a living storm. Hagrid threw himself behind a fallen pillar as the man shouted incantations, trying to contain the flames. The dragon roared, an ear-splitting sound that shook the ruins to their foundations. When the fire finally died down, the man was gone. So was the dragon. The air smelled of smoke and scorched stone. Hagrid rose slowly, coughing, his beard singed at the edges. Through a gap in the roof, he saw a streak of fire rising into the night sky, a comet of bronze and gold. The dragon was flying, her broken wing healed by some dark force. Fang whimpered at his side. Hagrid stared after her, heart pounding. "Merlin's beard," he whispered. "She's free. But at what cost?" As the last embers faded, he noticed something glinting amid the rubble, a small metal emblem, scorched nearly black. He picked it up and turned it over. It bore the mark of a dragon's eye, surrounded by runes. Beneath it, a single word in rough engraving: Obsidian Order. Hagrid's blood ran cold. He'd heard that name before. Whispers in the forbidden sections of old books. Rumors of wizards who sought to breed and weaponize magical beasts. So it wasn't just an injured dragon after all. It was the beginning of something far greater and far darker than Hagrid could have imagined. Night settled again over the grounds of Hogwarts, and the forbidden forest breathed in its strange, shifting silence. A pale moon floated through drifting clouds, silvering the tops of the trees and glinting faintly on the damp grass by Hagrid's hut. Yet the half-giant did not rest. He sat hunched at his table, elbows braced on the wood, the small scorched emblem before him. Its rune shimmered faintly in the lamplight, a dragon's eye encircled by ancient symbols. He had cleaned it as best he could, though soot clung stubbornly to the grooves. Every time his gaze fell upon it, a low, uncomfortable feeling stirred in his gut. Obsidian Order. The name carried the echo of something long buried. He flipped through one of his old tomes, a volume thick with dust and cracked leather binding. "Come on now," he muttered, running a broad finger down the page. "I know I've heard of you." And then he found it. The passage was short but clear. The Obsidian Order, an outlawed circle of wizards, once devoted to the study of draconic power, believed destroyed in the last century following a raid led by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Records incomplete, members unknown. Hagrid leaned back heavily. Destroyed, were they? He said under his breath. Then who's out there now, playing with fire they've no right to? Fang gave a soft whine, resting his head on Hagrid's knee. Hagrid sighed and scratched behind the dog's ears. "Aye, I know, lad. Nothing good'll come of this." Still, he could not ignore the image burned in his mind. the young dragon soaring through the storm, the chains breaking, the fire lighting the sky like dawn. She was free, yes, but wild now, changed by whatever magic had touched her. And if she'd gone north, toward the mountains, she could be anywhere by morning. At first light, Hagrid went to see Professor McGonagall again. Her office was bright with early sunlight, and she looked up sharply as he entered. "You have news?" she asked. "Aye," Hagrid said grimly. He set the scorched emblem upon her desk. "Found this where the dragon was taken. Belongs to the Obsidian Order." Her expression darkened. "That name," she murmured. "I had hoped never to hear it again." "So they're real, then?" "Once, yes," she said quietly. "A group of radicals who sought to control the oldest magic known, dragonfire. They believed that by binding dragons through spellcraft, they could harness the raw essence of their power. The Ministry dismantled them years ago, or so we were told." Hagrid frowned deeply. "The one I met, he said he was saving her, not hurting her. Claimed she'd been poisoned by her own kind." McGonagall's eyes narrowed. "That may be true, but such men often speak half-truths. If this order still exists, it may have splintered, some believing in preservation, others in weaponry. Either way, their magic is forbidden for good reason." "What do we do then?" Hagrid asked. "I will contact Kingsley," she said at last, quietly. "The Ministry must know, but we cannot risk panic. In the meantime, you must find where the dragon has gone. If the creature is unstable, she may bring destruction upon us all." Hagrid nodded heavily. "I'll head out tonight." And he did. As the evening fell once more, he made ready crossbow, lantern, and a small pack of meat and bandages in case he found her wounded again. Fang trotted beside him as he crossed the grounds and entered the forest. The night was colder than before, the wind threading through the trees with a mournful whistle. Hagrid followed the northern paths where few dared to tread. The forest changed there, older, quieter, as though the trees themselves remembered times before Hogwarts had ever stood. The ground rose gradually toward the mountains. Soon the air smelled faintly of ash and stone. After several hours, Hagrid came upon a cliffside clearing where the trees thinned, revealing the starlit sky. The ground bore deep scorch marks, and a great boulder lay split clean in two. He crouched, brushing his fingers over the charred rock. The heat still lingered. "She's been here," he murmured. Then a voice spoke from behind him. "You shouldn't have come alone." Hagrid turned swiftly. It was Farron once more, emerging from the shadows between the trees, his silver mane dull beneath the starlight. "I have seen her," the centaur said. "She flew toward the mountains, but not freely. There is sickness in her fire. The stars tremble at it." "Sickness?" Hagrid asked. Farron nodded solemnly. "The binding she bore has awakened something old within her blood. When she breathes flame, it burns more than air. It burns life. The forest wilts in her wake." "That's not her fault," Hagrid protested. "No," Farron agreed softly, "but her pain will draw hunters, wizards, beasts, and worse. If she is not found before they are, she will not survive." A distant roar echoed across the peaks. Both turned toward it, the cry of a dragon, fierce yet filled with agony. Hagrid tightened his grip on the crossbow. "That's her!" Farron's gaze flicked toward the dark horizon. "Then go, keeper of creatures. The forest will not stand in your way, but take heed. There are others searching too." And with that, the centaur was gone, vanishing into the mist. Hagrid pressed onward. The forest thinned until the land opened into rocky hills, scattered with low shrubs. The dragon's trail was easier to follow now. Patches of scorched earth, claw marks gouged into stone, and once a pool of molten rock, cooling in a hollow. At last he found her. The young dragon crouched upon a cliff's edge, wings folded tight, her chest heaving. Smoke poured from her nostrils. Her eyes glowed with feverish fire. She turned as he approached, and for an instant, Hagrid saw both rage and recognition flicker there. "It's all right, girl," he said softly. "It's me. I ain't gonna hurt ye." But she recoiled, snarling, flames licking between her teeth. Her scales shimmered with strange patterns now, runes etched in light across her hide. The curse was spreading. Hagrid raised his hands slowly. "Please," he whispered, "let me help." Before he could move closer, a sharp voice rang out. "Step away from her." Hagrid spun. Out from the shadows stepped 3 figures, wands raised. Their cloaks bore the same insignia, the dragon's eye, the obsidian order. The leader's hood fell back, revealing a young witch with pale hair and eyes like chips of glass. "You should not have meddled, half-giant," she said coldly. "She belongs to us." "No one belongs to anyone," Hagrid roared. "Then you leave us no choice," she said. The dragon lifted her head suddenly, eyes flaring bright gold, and let out a roar that split the sky. The force of it sent Hagrid stumbling back. Flames erupted across the mountainside. The Order members shielded themselves, shouting incantations, their magic clashing against the inferno. Through the chaos, Hagrid saw the witch raise her wand high, casting a spell of binding. But the dragon turned her gaze upon her, and the spell rebounded. A scream cut through the air. Then, with a mighty beat of her wings, the dragon rose, scattering fire and ash. Hagrid shielded his eyes as she soared into the storm, vanishing into the clouds. When the smoke cleared, the Order members were gone. Only scorched rock remained. Hagrid lowered his arm, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the sky. Somewhere above, thunder rolled once more, the sound of wings and distant flame. He knew then that this was no simple rescue, no mere act of compassion. The Obsidian Order was alive, the dragon was theirs, and the war for her soul had only just begun. For 3 days and nights the skies above the highlands burned. Travelers spoke in whispers of a bronze flame that streaked across the clouds and vanished into the northern peaks. The ministry sent patrols in secret, though none dared fly too close. Rumor spread that the dragon was cursed, that its very breath turned air to poison and earth to ash. At Hogwarts, the whispers reached the great hall before breakfast on the 4th morning. Hagrid, grim and sleepless, sat alone at the staff table, his massive hands clasped around a mug of black tea. The students' chatter echoed faintly around him, but he heard little of it. His thoughts were far away, in the mountains, beneath the fire-lit sky. Professor McGonagall approached quietly. "They're saying the beast was sighted near Ben Nevis," she said. "If it continues east, it could reach the villages by dusk." Hagrid's jaw tightened. "It ain't her fault. She's hurt and scared, that's all." "I don't doubt it," said McGonagall softly. "But the ministry will not see it that way." "If they catch her before you do, Hagrid?" "I won't let 'em," he interrupted. His chair scraped back as he rose. "I'll find her first." McGonagall's eyes glinted with worry. "You cannot fight the ministry, Hagrid." "I'm not fighting them," he said, pulling on his moleskin coat. "I'm just making sure they don't get there in time to make a mistake." By noon, he was on the move again, striding north through snow and heather, Fang bounding at his side. The trail was easier to follow now, patches of scorched frost, blackened trees, and once the faint shimmer of dragon scales scattered like coins along the rocks. Hagrid paused when he found one, smooth and bronze, still warm to the touch. "She's close," he murmured. As the sun sank low, the wind grew colder. The land rose sharply into jagged cliffs, and he could see far into the distance, the ruins of an old watchtower perched on a ridge, its stones half collapsed. The air shimmered faintly above it like heat rippling over a summer road. Fang growled. Hagrid loaded his crossbow and began the climb. Snow crunched beneath his boots. As he neared the summit, he heard it, the heavy, rhythmic sound of breathing. Then a low, broken roar that trembled through the stones. The dragon lay among the ruins, her great body curled protectively around something. Her scales were darkened, her eyes glazed with exhaustion. When she saw him, she raised her head weakly and exhaled a plume of smoke. "It's all right, girl," Hagrid said softly, lowering his weapon. "It's me." He stepped closer, his lantern light washing over the broken walls. Then he saw what she guarded, a nest. 3 great cracked eggs lay in a bed of ash and stone. 2 were cold and dull, lifeless. But one pulsed faintly with light, its shell veined with gold. Hagrid's breath caught. "By Merlin," he whispered, "you've been protecting this, haven't you?" The dragon blinked slowly, her gaze shifting toward the glowing egg. A low rumble of sound escaped her throat, a mixture of pride and sorrow. "Don't worry, girl," he said. "I'll keep it safe. We'll get you both through this." But before he could take another step, the air shimmered, and a spell struck the ground beside him, flinging snow into the air. "Step away from her," a voice commanded. Hagrid spun. 4 figures emerged from the shadows of the ruin, cloaked and masked, each bearing the same obsidian emblem. The order had returned. The leader, the pale-haired witch, raised her wand. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, half-giant. That egg cannot be allowed to hatch." "Like hell it can't," Hagrid barked. "It's alive." "It's cursed," she snapped. "That dragon was bred to carry an enchantment, one meant to bind the essence of her kind into a single heir. If that egg hatches, it will not be a creature. It will be a weapon." "Then help me stop it safely," Hagrid shouted. "Don't just kill it." The witch hesitated, her wand wavering. "You think I haven't tried?" she hissed. "It was our order that made her this way. We were fools. We wanted to control their power, but the fire turned against us. She escaped before the ritual could be completed. The child she carries holds what's left of that curse." Her words rang hollow in the icy air. Hagrid felt his anger give way to dread. "What happens if it hatches?" he asked. The witch's voice dropped to a whisper. "The mountains will burn. The sky itself may burn. The curse will spread through fire and air until all magic bends to it." Hagrid stared at the glowing egg, its light flickering brighter with each breath of the dying dragon. "There's got to be another way," he said hoarsely. "We can stop the curse without destroying the poor thing." But the witch only shook her head. "Some things can't be unmade." Then the dragon stirred. Her great wings unfurled, and her voice echoed across the peaks, a roar that seemed to shake the stars themselves. Flames burst from her mouth, driving the order back. Hagrid threw up his arm to shield his face. When he looked again, the witch and her followers were retreating into the night. The dragon sagged, exhausted, smoke curling from her nostrils. "Easy now," Hagrid murmured, rushing forward. "You did good, girl. Real good." He knelt beside her, his heart aching at the sight. Her breathing was shallow, her great eyes dim. The egg pulsed once more beside her. She turned her head toward him, rumbling faintly. For a moment Hagrid thought he understood her, some instinct older than language. She wanted him to take the egg. "No," he whispered. "I can't. It's yours." But the dragon exhaled softly, her fire dying to embers. Her eyes closed, and then she was still. The silence that followed was vast. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Hagrid bowed his head. "Rest easy, lass," he murmured. "I'll look after it. Promise." He gathered the egg carefully in both hands. It was heavy and warm, a steady pulse thrumming beneath its shell like a heartbeat. As he held it, the light within brightened, and for an instant he felt something stir. Not a voice exactly, but a whisper of thought, ancient and fierce. Then the glow faded. Hagrid rose, tucking the egg safely into his pack. Fang pressed close to his leg, whining softly. "Aye, boy," Hagrid said, voice low. "We've got our work cut out for us." He turned back once, looking at the fallen dragon. Snow had already begun to cover her body, the flakes hissing softly as they melted against her still warm scales. "I'll make it right," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes." Then he began the long journey down the mountain, unaware that far above, hidden among the clouds, the pale-haired witch watched him go. Her wand lowered, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her words vanished into the wind. "Fool of a giant," she murmured. "You've just taken the fire we could never control." And somewhere deep within Hagrid's pack, the dragon's egg gave a single, trembling pulse of light, like the first beat of a living heart. The storm rolled in before dawn, sweeping across the highlands in sheets of silver rain. Hagrid trudged onward through the downpour, his great shoulders hunched, his lantern dim beneath the torrent. Fang kept close at his heels, paws splashing through the mud. The path was treacherous, slippery stones and hidden roots, but Hagrid moved with grim purpose. The pack upon his back warm with the steady pulse of the dragon's egg. He glanced over his shoulder often, though the rain had erased all tracks. He had no illusions that he was alone. The Obsidian Order had vanished into the mountains, but they would return. They had lost the mother, and now they would come for the child. By the time the first pale light crept over the hills, Hagrid had reached the shelter of a rocky hollow near the forest's edge. He ducked inside, shaking the rain from his hair. Fang gave a mighty shake as well, sending droplets in every direction. "Aye, boy," Hagrid muttered, lighting his lantern anew. "Drying off won't do us much good. We're soaked clean through." The light revealed the egg, resting within a fold of Hagrid's cloak. Its shell glowed faintly like moonlight through amber. Cracks of golden light traced along its surface, alive and shifting as though something inside stirred restlessly. Hagrid crouched close, his rough hand trembling slightly as he reached out. The warmth was stronger now, pulsing against his palm. "Easy now," he murmured. "Ain't time yet." But even as he spoke, the light flared brighter, and the egg gave a faint sound. A sharp tap like a heartbeat turned to stone. Fang whined, backing away. "Merlin's beard," Hagrid breathed. "You're early." He set the egg gently upon the soft earth, watching in wonder as another tap echoed from within. A crack split the shell, followed by a shimmer of golden flame that spilled into the air before fading to mist. Then, with a final sharp snap, the shell broke apart, and from its fragments, the dragonling emerged. She was no larger than a cat, her scales gleaming like polished bronze streaked with faint silver. Her wings, though small, unfurled with a startling beauty, shimmering with colors that seemed to shift between firelight and starlight. Her eyes opened, pale gold, deep and ancient, far older than any creature so young should have been. "Well, would you look at that?" Hagrid whispered, awe softening his voice. "Ain't you a wonder?" The hatchling blinked up at him, tilting her head. Then she sneezed, a puff of sparks leaping from her nostrils that singed Hagrid's beard. "Oi!" he laughed, rubbing the spot. "None of that now." He fed her a scrap of raw meat from his pack, and she devoured it eagerly, tail flicking like a kitten's. Despite the warmth she gave off, the air around her seemed to hum faintly with energy. Every breath shimmered with the same golden light that had glowed within her shell. For a few blessed hours, Hagrid simply watched her. She crawled into the crook of his great arm, curling up like a sleeping ember, her tiny claws clutching his sleeve. Even Fang, after much sniffing, lay down near her, his great head resting on his paws. But peace was not meant to last. By midday, a shadow fell across the mouth of the hollow. Hagrid stiffened, instantly reaching for his crossbow. "Show yourself," he called. A cloaked figure stepped into view, tall, slender, and drenched from the rain. The hood fell back, and the pale-haired witch's face emerged once more. Her expression was unreadable. "You followed me," Hagrid said flatly. "I warned you," she replied. "You should have destroyed it when you had the chance." The dragonling stirred at her voice, letting out a low growl far too deep for its size. Flames flickered between its teeth. "Destroy it?" Hagrid growled. "You lot have done enough destroying. She ain't hurting anyone." "Not yet," the witch said softly. "But that fire inside her, do you know what it is? It's not magic, it's memory. The curse her mother carried still burns in her blood. You think she's alive? But in truth, she's only waiting to awaken what we tried to contain." "Ye can say what you like," Hagrid said, rising to his full height. "But she's mine now, and I'll not let you near her." The witch's eyes flashed. "You're a fool, half-giant. Do you think love can shield you from ancient power?" "I've seen worse tamed with kindness," he said. For a heartbeat, she seemed almost moved. But then her expression hardened, and she raised her wand. "Then you leave me no choice." Before she could cast, the dragonling leapt from Hagrid's arm. In an instant, her tiny wings spread wide, and she spat a narrow jet of golden flame. The witch threw up a shield, the fire colliding with it in a burst of light. The air filled with the scent of ozone and smoke. Hagrid lunged forward, grabbing the witch's wrist and forcing her wand aside. "Stop it! She's just a baby." The witch struggled, but her voice broke with frustration rather than hatred. "You don't understand. Every spell she casts feeds the fire. The more she uses it, the closer she comes to becoming the curse itself." The hatchling hissed again, wings flaring until Hagrid caught her up in his arm. "It's all right, girl," he murmured. "It's all right. No one's hurting you." The witch lowered her wand slowly, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Her name was Calith. That's what we called her mother, before everything went wrong. Keep that name if you must remember something pure about her." She turned to leave, her cloak billowing in the wind. "Wait," Hagrid called. "If you really wanted her destroyed, you'd have done it by now. Why tell me all this?" The witch paused at the edge of the hollow, "Because you'll need to know what you carry," she said. "When the order comes again, they will not show mercy to you or to her." And then she was gone, swallowed by rain and shadow. Hagrid stood motionless for a while, the firelight flickering across his face, the hatchling nestled against his chest, warm and trembling. He looked down at her and saw not danger, but life, fragile, bright, and wholly innocent. "Calith," he murmured softly. "That's your name, then. Calith." The dragonling blinked, her golden eyes reflecting the lantern light. A faint spark escaped her mouth, curling upward like a sigh. Outside, the rain eased. A thin shaft of sunlight pierced the clouds, falling across the hollow like a blessing. But far to the north, beyond the mountains, a dark tower rose from the mist, its walls black as coal, its battlements shaped like the wings of dragons. Within it, cloaked figures gathered around a great stone table, and upon it burned the emblem of the Obsidian Order. "The egg has hatched," said a voice from the shadows. "The creature lives." Another answered, colder still. "Then find them both before the fire chooses its master." And as thunder rolled across the highlands, the dragonling stirred once more, her tiny scales flashing gold, like a promise and like a warning. The days that followed were restless ones. The storm had passed, but the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if listening. Each dawn brought a fog that hung thick among the trees, and each night Hagrid saw strange lights flicker far beyond the edge of his lantern. He had returned to his hut with Calith hidden beneath his cloak, her warmth pressed close to his chest. Not even McGonagall knew she lived. Not yet. He dared not tell anyone. The Ministry would come the moment they heard. They would cage her, study her, perhaps destroy her. And so each day, Hagrid tended to her in secret. Calith grew swiftly. In less than a week, she was the length of Hagrid's forearm, her wings strong enough to lift her from the table to the rafters with a single beat. Her scales darkened from bright bronze to a deeper molten hue, and her eyes glowed faintly even in the dark. Fang was wary of her at first, though she'd taken a strange liking to him, curling by his side at night like a creature born of fire and smoke. Hagrid kept her fed on small cuts of meat and warmed milk, sometimes sneaking the scraps from the great hall kitchens under the guise of feeding Thestrals. He slept little, his mind turning constantly to the words of the witch, about curses and memory, about magic older than he could fathom. Yet when Calith looked up at him with those golden eyes, full of trust, he could not believe she was a monster. On the 5th night the dream came. He was walking through the forest, moonlight slanting through the branches like silver rain. The air was heavy, hot with the smell of ash. Then the trees parted and he saw her, the mother dragon, Calith's dam, lying as he had left her in the mountains. But when she lifted her head, her eyes burned white. "Keeper of creatures," her voice rumbled in his mind, echoing like thunder. "The fire is bound to you now. What you carry must not fall to shadow." Hagrid tried to speak, but no sound left his lips. "The child bears both our hopes and our curse. The blood within her remembers. When the fire calls, she will answer. Beware the tower and the black flame, lest both consume her." The dragon's eyes flared brighter, and fire swept across the mountainside, blinding him. He awoke with a shout, sweat on his brow, Fang barking wildly beside the bed. The hut was dark except for the faint light coming from Calith's sleeping form. Her scales shimmered faintly pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Hagrid rubbed his eyes. "Just a dream," he muttered. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. By morning, he had resolved to learn more. He went to the library under the pretense of researching thestral breeding habits. Madame Pince eyed him suspiciously but said nothing as he gathered a small mountain of dusty tomes and scrolls. He searched for hours, tracing mention after mention of draconic lore, hybrids, binding spells, and cursed flame. One book, a half-burned volume bound in dark leather, mentioned the Ignis Primordia, the first fire, said to be the origin of all dragonkind. It was said to be a living force, bound by the earliest wizards, and that any creature born of its spark carried the essence of creation itself, both gift and doom. Hagrid leaned close over the candlelight. "So that's what she is," he murmured. "Not a weapon, not a curse, just magic old as the world." But before he could read further, a voice spoke from behind him. "You won't find what you seek in books." Hagrid turned, startled. It was the pale-haired witch again. Though she had shed her black cloak for a simple traveling coat, she looked different, tired, perhaps even uncertain. "How'd you get in here?" Hagrid demanded in a low voice. "I have my ways," she said quietly, "and I mean no harm. I only came to warn you." "Warn me of what?" "The Order is moving. They know the hatchling survived. They've sent hunters to retrieve her, men who won't hesitate to burn the forest to ash if that's what it takes." Hagrid felt his blood run cold. "Then they'll have to get through me first." "You can't protect her alone," she said. "She must be hidden. There's a sanctuary in the Highlands, an old reserve once kept for dragons before the Ministry outlawed such work. If you can reach it, the wards there might hold them off long enough." "Why are you telling me this?" Her gaze flicked to the window, where the pale dawn light broke through the glass. "Because I've seen what the Order does when it wins, and I won't let them claim her again." Before Hagrid could reply, she pressed a small token into his hand, a piece of obsidian etched with a faint silver rune. "Show this at the gate of the sanctuary. It will open for you." Then she turned and vanished between the rows of books, leaving only the faint scent of ash in her wake. That evening, Hagrid returned to his hut with a heavy heart. He packed quickly food, ropes, blankets, and wrapped Calith gently in a thick cloak. Fang paced nervously, tail tucked low. "Come on, boy," Hagrid said. "We're heading north again. Just for a while." He left Hogwarts under the cover of night. The moon was half full, casting long shadows across the grounds. The castle loomed behind him, its windows glowing faintly like watchful eyes. He paused at the edge of the forest and looked back once. "Don't worry," he murmured, "we'll be back." They traveled for hours beneath the stars, following the hidden paths that wound deep into the Highlands. The air grew colder, and the wind sharper, carrying the scent of snow. Calith stirred occasionally, curling tighter against his chest. Near midnight they reached a narrow gorge where a river cut through black stone. A single arching bridge crossed it, old and crumbling, its surface carved with runes so worn they could barely be read. Hagrid paused before it and held up the obsidian token. For a moment nothing happened. Then the runes flared silver and a deep hum echoed through the rock. The air shimmered and the bridge solidified, glowing faintly underfoot. Beyond it, a hidden valley stretched out, veiled in mist. At its center stood the ruins of what had once been a vast enclosure, stone towers, broken pens, and the faint shapes of skeletal wings lying half buried in moss. The sanctuary, Hagrid breathed. He crossed the bridge, the mist closing around him like a living thing. Yet beneath its chill, he felt a strange warmth, as though unseen eyes watched but did not threaten. Inside the valley, the ruins seemed to stir with faint echoes of ancient magic. Here and there, ghostly figures of dragons shimmered and faded, their forms woven from mist and moonlight. Calith awoke, craning her small head to gaze at them, a soft hum vibrating in her throat. "Aye, lass," Hagrid whispered. "Feels like home, don't it?" But even as he spoke, the mist thickened, and far away a new sound rose, the sharp, distant cry of horns. Fang's ears flattened. Calith hissed softly. Hagrid looked toward the mountains beyond the valley. Flickers of red light danced upon the horizon. The Order had found their trail. He tightened his grip on the hatchling and turned toward the heart of the sanctuary, where the last of the dragon wards still pulsed faintly with silver light. "Hold on, girl," he said. "We ain't done fighting yet." And as the first echoing footsteps entered the valley behind them, the ancient runes began to awaken. One by one, like embers stirred to flame, the ancient valley lay still as a grave when Hagrid crossed its threshold. Moonlight streamed through the clouds, painting the ruins in shades of silver and shadow. The faint hum of forgotten wards echoed through the mist, and underfoot the stones seemed to breathe with their own pulse, the remnants of old dragon magic. Calith stirred within his cloak, her warmth radiating through the fabric, a heartbeat of living fire. Fang padded close, hackles raised, nose twitching at the scent of strange air, ash and old smoke mingled with something far older, something that hummed faintly of scales and wings. Hagrid's boots sank into the damp moss as he made his way deeper into the valley. The ruins rose around him like silent sentinels, arches half collapsed, great iron rings still embedded in the ground, once used to tether dragons long gone, and everywhere, carved into the stone, glowed faint traces of runes. He could almost hear whispers on the wind, as if the stones themselves remembered. When he reached the central courtyard, he stopped short. Before him stood a statue of a dragon, massive, weathered, and cracked by time. Its eyes were hollow, yet they seemed to watch him, its wings outstretched in eternal defiance. At its feet, in faint runic script, was a single phrase: Ignis Primordia Custodiatur. Let the first fire be guarded. "Aye," Hagrid murmured. "That's what we're doing, ain't we?" He set Calith gently upon the stone. The young dragon stretched her wings, blinking up at the statue. Her golden eyes reflected the runes like twin lanterns. Then with a low trill, she laid her claws against the ancient carving. The reaction was immediate. The runes blazed to life, spilling silver fire along the cracks in the stone. The air trembled. Hagrid stumbled back as the ground shook beneath his boots. "Steady, now!" he cried, reaching for her. But Calith stood firm, her wings spread wide as if claiming the ancient place as her own. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, so low it seemed to echo inside his bones. Then all at once the light dimmed. The statue's eyes flared gold, matching Calith's, and a voice, not spoken but felt, rolled through the valley like thunder. "Blood of flame, child of two fires, you awaken what was sealed." Hagrid's mouth went dry. What's that mean?" The voice did not answer him. Instead, the dragon statue's eyes turned downward toward Calith, and the mist around them swirled faster, forming vague shapes, giant wings, long necks, tails like flowing rivers of smoke. Ghostly dragons, the spirits of the old sanctuary, rose into being all around them. Fang whimpered, pressing close to Hagrid's leg. Calith, however, only tilted her head, unafraid. The largest of the spectral dragons bent its head toward her, its translucent eyes like dying stars. The flame must not fall to darkness, the spirit intoned. The Obsidian Order seeks to awaken the same fire that destroyed them. Their greed will shatter the world anew.
Hagrid swallowed hard. Then what am I supposed to do? I can't fight a whole army of wizards. You cannot fight them with strength, the voice rumbled. But you carry what they cannot. Faith. The child will choose her path. Guide her, keeper, and stand where we once stood. Then, as swiftly as it had begun, the light vanished. The ghostly dragons dissolved into mist, leaving only silence. The statue's eyes went dark. Calith turned to Hagrid, letting out a soft chirp. He let out a shaky breath, half in awe, half in dread. "Reckon that's our answer then," he muttered. "Guide ya, protect ya, and keep that order off our backs." He barely had time to collect his thoughts before Fang stiffened, growling deep in his throat. From beyond the ridge, a horn sounded, low, cruel, and close. The Obsidian Order had arrived. Hagrid scooped Calith into his arms and ran toward the inner ruins. Torches flared along the valley rim as shadowy figures descended, their cloaks billowing in the wind. Sparks flew as spells struck the rocks around him, exploding in bursts of green and violet flame. "Run, Fang!" Hagrid bellowed. The dog darted ahead, barking furiously. He ducked into a narrow passage between two broken walls, the sound of pursuit close behind. Calith trembled against his chest, her small claws gripping his coat. He could feel the heat rising from her scales, the fire building within. "Easy, girl," he whispered, "not yet." He stumbled into what had once been a vast chamber, its roof open to the sky. The floor was covered in carvings, spirals, runes, and the faint outline of a circle at its center. He recognized it at once. A ritual platform. Before he could think, the pale-haired witch appeared in the doorway. She was breathing hard, wand drawn, eyes flashing with urgency. "Hagrid!" she shouted. "You have to move! They're breaking the outer wards!" "How'd you find me again?" "No time for that," she snapped. "The Order brought a seeker, a warlock who can drain magic from wards. When he breaks the last seal, they'll bring the fire down on us all." "Then help me stop him." Her gaze fell to Calith, who watched her warily. The witch hesitated. "She's growing faster than I imagined," she whispered. "The fire's already feeding on the old sanctuary magic. If it isn't contained, she could..." Calith's roar cut her off. The sound was small but filled the chamber, resonant and sharp. Her wings flared, and the runes beneath their feet blazed to life once more. "What's happening?" Hagrid shouted. "The sanctuary recognizes her," the witch cried. "It's answering the blood of dragons." A surge of wind swept through the chamber. Stones lifted, floating like leaves caught in a current. The witch shielded her eyes. "Hagrid, listen to me. If she bonds fully with this place, the Order won't just find you. They'll sense her. You must flee now." But it was too late. The ground split open, light pouring from the cracks like liquid gold. Calith rose into the air, hovering above the glowing circle, her eyes burning brighter than ever before. The storm overhead cracked with lightning. The witch stared in disbelief. "She's not just awakening the wards, she's absorbing them."
What's that mean? Hagrid demanded. She's becoming the sanctuary itself. A beam of golden light shot upward from the circle, piercing the clouds. The valley shook violently, the very air quivering with raw power. Hagrid grabbed the witch's arm, dragging her toward the exit. Fang barked wildly as rubble fell around them. When they burst out into the open, the sky above was alive with fire. The light from the sanctuary's heart spread outward like ripples, pushing back the encroaching darkness. The figures of the Order halted at the ridge, shielding their faces. At the center of it all, Calith hovered, wreathed in golden flame, her small form radiant against the storm. Her roar split the night. The torches of the Order flickered and died. For a heartbeat, everything was still.
Then, with a great flash, the fire vanished. Calith fell gently to the ground, unconscious but unharmed. The glow faded from the ruins. The witch stood trembling beside Hagrid. "She sealed the valley," she whispered. "No one can enter now, not even the Order." Hagrid let out a long breath, his shoulders sagging. "Good on you, girl," he said softly. The witch turned to him, eyes shadowed. "You've no idea what she's become, do you? That kind of power, she's more than just a dragon now. She's the last spark of the first fire itself. Then we'll make sure she don't burn the world down," Hagrid said firmly. For the first time, the witch's expression softened. "You truly believe you can guide her?" Hagrid looked down at the sleeping hatchling, her small chest rising and falling like the steady rhythm of a forge. "Aye," he said, "I raised a blast-ended scroot and lived to tell about it. Reckon I can handle one wee dragon." The witch almost smiled. "Then may fortune favor you, keeper." The valley was silent again, save for the wind through the broken towers. Far above, the storm drifted east, taking with it the scent of smoke and the echo of dragon fire. But deep within the sanctuary's heart, beneath the stone and the runes, something ancient stirred. A flicker of golden light that pulsed once, twice, and then was still. The fire was not gone, it was waiting. The days that followed were unlike any Hagrid had ever known. The valley lay shrouded in an unnatural calm, the air thick with a lingering golden haze. The runes that lined the ancient stones still glowed faintly at night, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Calith, now the living core of the sanctuary's power, slumbered within a circle of scorched grass where she had fallen. Her body shimmered with faint threads of light that pulsed in rhythm with the ruins themselves. Hagrid kept vigil beside her. He built a small camp among the broken pillars, a rough shelter of canvas and stone, and kept the fire burning low through the nights. Fang lay at his feet, growling softly whenever the wind carried strange whispers from the mist. Though the Order had been driven off, Hagrid knew it would not be for long. Such wizards never gave up what they desired. Still, for now, there was peace. Calith's sleep was deep and dreamless, but Hagrid could sense her magic stirring beneath the surface, alive, restless. Sometimes when the moon was full, he saw the faint outline of dragon spirits circling above the ruins drawn by her fire. They did not attack or speak, but their presence filled him with both awe and unease. It was as though the sanctuary had awakened and the dead remembered their duty. Each morning, Hagrid would tend to her scales, polishing away the soot and ash that clung from her awakening. Her wings had grown stronger. Even in sleep, they flexed now and then, stirring the dust. "She's growing fast," he murmured to Fang one dawn as he knelt beside her,
Can't say I've ever seen anything like it. Even Norberta weren't this quick. Fang wagged his tail uncertainly. The valley's silence was broken only by the sigh of wind through the stones, until one evening the silence changed. The fire dimmed, the air thickened, heavy with the scent of smoke and iron. Hagrid rose slowly, crossbow in hand. From the shadow of the cliffs came the faint sound of footsteps. Then a voice, Rubeus Hagrid. It was deep and calm, but carried the weight of command. From the mist emerged 3 figures in ministry robes, their wands drawn and badges gleaming faintly in the lantern light. The leader, a tall wizard with sharp eyes and silver hair, stepped forward. By order of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, you are to surrender any unregistered beasts in your possession. Hagrid's heart sank. She ain't just a beast, he said quietly.
Then what is she? The wizard asked. Hagrid's hand clenched around the crossbow. Something the ministry won't understand. Something that needs protecting. The wizard's eyes flicked to the ruins, to the faint golden glow within the circle. We've had reports of unusual magical activity in this region. You've sealed off an entire valley, Hagrid. Do you realize what that means? I didn't seal nothing, Hagrid protested. The sanctuary woke itself. I'm just keeping her safe till she grows strong enough to destroy us all, the wizard interrupted coldly. Before Hagrid could answer, the mist parted behind them, and the pale-haired witch stepped forward. The ministry wizards stiffened. Who is this? She ignored them, her gaze fixed on Hagrid. You shouldn't have lit the fire, Keeper, she said softly. The wards are breaking. The obsidian order has found a way through. Hagrid's stomach turned to ice. What? The valley's magic is calling to them. Every time she breathes, the fire spreads farther. The wards that once protected this place now lead the hunters straight to it. The lead wizard turned sharply. What is she talking about? The witch raised her wand, tracing a circle in the air. For an instant, the mists parted to reveal the northern horizon, and a sight that made Hagrid's heart lurch. A column of dark fire was rising beyond the mountains, pulsing like a beacon. Within it, faint shapes moved, wings, tails, and the silhouette of men cloaked in shadow. They're coming, the witch said grimly, and when they arrive, not even the ministry will stop them. The senior wizard hesitated only a moment before barking orders. Seal the valley, deploy containment wards. No, Hagrid roared. You'll kill her if you do that. She's a threat. She's a child. For a moment, the valley trembled with their voices. Then from behind Hagrid, a low rumble shook the ground. He turned and saw Calith rising. The young dragon's eyes blazed like molten gold. Her wings spread, scattering sparks of light. She opened her mouth, and from her throat came not fire, but sound. A cry of pure magic, high and ringing, that split the air like a bell. The ministry wizards fell back, shielding their ears. The witch closed her eyes, whispering under her breath. The golden fire that ringed the sanctuary flared brighter. The runes on the stones glowed white. Calith's cry became a roar, and above the valley, storm clouds began to churn, not gray but gold, like a dawn unending. The lead wizard shouted a command, his voice lost in the gale. The air crackled with spells, bindings, shields, counter charms, all swallowed by the roaring light. Calith, stop, Hagrid cried, running forward. They'll think you're attacking him. It's all right, girl. You're safe. The dragon's eyes flicked toward him. For an instant, the fury in them softened,
The golden light dimmed, and the storm eased. But from the northern ridge came a new sound, a horn long and deep. The obsidian order had arrived. Hagrid turned to see figures descending from the cliffs, their cloaks blacker than shadow, their wands burning with crimson flame. The valley's golden light clashed with their darkness, the two magics writhing like serpents. The witch stepped forward, wand raised. "Get her out of here," she shouted. "I can't leave you." "You must." Her eyes locked on his. "You're the only one she trusts. Take her and go south, through the caves beneath the sanctuary. There's a tunnel that leads to the river. I'll hold them back." Caliph let out a piercing cry. The first blasts of red fire struck the ward line, sending ripples through the air. The ministry wizards were shouting now, spells colliding in showers of light. Hagrid didn't think. He threw his crossbow aside, scooped Caliph into his arms, and ran. Fang was already ahead of him, barking wildly. The ground shook as explosions tore through the ruins. Stone fragments rained down. The golden runes flickered and went dark, one by one. As he reached the archway that led to the lower tunnels, Hagrid looked back. The witch stood alone before the advancing order, her hair whipping in the wind, her wand blazing silver. Behind her, Caliph's sanctuary burned with gold. Then the light consumed it all. The world turned white. When Hagrid stumbled out of the tunnels hours later, the valley was silent once more. Smoke rose from the mountains, drifting like ghosts. Caliph slept fitfully in his arms, her scales dim, her fire spent. He looked back toward the ruins. There was no sign of the ministry, nor of the witch, nor of the order, only silence and ash. He turned toward the south where the forest waited and began to walk. "Don't you worry, lass," he murmured. "We'll find a way. We always do." And above them, hidden behind clouds, a faint golden spark flickered across the sky. The last whisper of the sanctuary's fire carried on the wind toward the unknown. The river wound south through deep ravines and glens where no road had ever been laid. By the time the gray light of dawn crept across the water, Hagrid was far from the shattered valley. His arms ached from the long flight, yet he dared not rest. Fang trudged beside him, limping from a fall among the rocks, but ever loyal, and pressed close to his chest, wrapped in a soot-stained cloak. Caliph slept once more, her warmth the only comfort in that cold wilderness. The forest around them had changed. Gone were the whispering beeches of Hogwarts' borders. Here the trees grew ancient and gnarled, their roots clutching the stones like claws. Mist hung between their branches, thick and silver white. Sometimes Hagrid thought he saw shapes in it, vast wings or eyes gleaming like coals, but when he looked twice, there was only fog. He paused at a bend in the river where the cliffs rose sheer on either side. The air smelled faintly of ash, even this far from the sanctuary. He laid Caliph gently on a patch of moss and looked north. The horizon still glowed faintly gold where the wards had burned, though the light was fading. "Reckon that's the last we'll see of it, girl," he murmured. "Your home's gone." Caliph stirred, a soft hum rising from her throat. She blinked sleepily, eyes bright in the dawn light, and looked up at him. Hagrid smiled faintly and scratched the edge of her jaw where the scales were softer. "Don't you worry. We'll find somewhere new, somewhere the order won't reach." He knew he had to keep moving. The ministry would send search parties. The order, too, would not rest until they found her. He could not return to Hogwarts, not yet. Even McGonagall, wise as she was, might be forced by the ministry to turn her over. So he followed the river deeper into the wild. They walked for 2 days, resting only when Calith's strength faltered. She was growing faster than before, each morning larger, her wings stretching farther, her fire brighter when she exhaled in her sleep. Once, she had been small enough to carry beneath one arm. Now her tail brushed the earth when he lifted her. On the 3rd night, the forest ended. Before them stretched a wide moor, under a vault of stars, silent except for the wind. Hagrid made camp among a ring of standing stones that jutted from the grass like the teeth of some forgotten beast. He built a fire from dried heather and kept it low. Calith curled near the flames, her scales reflecting the light like molten bronze. Fang lay nearby, tail twitching in uneasy sleep. Hagrid sat watching the stars, his thoughts heavy. The pale-haired witch's final cry still rang in his mind. Take her and go south. He wondered if she had survived. He wanted to believe she had. There had been truth in her eyes at the end, and a strange kind of sorrow. The fire cracked softly. Hagrid stirred the embers, sighing. Your mother trusted me, Calith. Reckon I'll have to do right by both of you. The dragonling lifted her head, her eyes no longer purely gold, but streaked with faint crimson lines, fixed on him with eerie intelligence. Then she spoke, not in words, but in a voice inside his mind, clear as thought. Keeper. Hagrid froze. What? Fire remembers. Her gaze did not waver. The flames brightened, swirling in rhythm with her breath. Hagrid's heart pounded. Merlin's beard, he whispered. You can talk? But Calith only blinked, the light in her eyes dimming. Whatever power had spoken through her had passed. She laid her head down again and drifted into sleep. For a long time Hagrid sat in silence, staring into the fire. He felt both wonder and dread. Dragons were clever, yes, but never like this. Never so human. When dawn came, the world was strangely still. Clouds rolled low over the moor, and the air prickled with static. As Hagrid packed their things, Fang began to growl, low and warning. Calith hissed softly, wings half spread. Then, from the mist, came footsteps. Hagrid turned sharply, crossbow raised. A man emerged from the fog, a wizard cloaked in tattered black robes, his face thin and pale as bone. His eyes gleamed like steel. "Don't move," Hagrid warned. The stranger stopped, raising his empty hands. "Peace, half-giant. I come not as foe." Funny, that's what all the worst sorts say before the curses start flying. The man smiled faintly. "I am no servant of the Obsidian Order. I am what remains of their shadow. You may call me Orin." Hagrid frowned. "Ain't interested in names. Say what you came for." "I came," Orin said quietly, "to see the child of flame, the last of the primordial line." His gaze shifted toward Calith, who bared her teeth in a silent snarl. "Beautiful, more than we ever dreamed possible." "You stay right there," Hagrid growled. "She's not for anyone's taking." "I don't seek to take her," Orin said. "But you must understand the Obsidian Order was not born from cruelty alone. We sought balance. The fire of dragons is older than time itself. It can create or unmake. When your dragon sealed the sanctuary, she disturbed that balance. The Order will not stop until they reclaim the fire or destroy it. Then they'll have to go through me," Hagrid said. Orin's eyes narrowed. "You would stand against the tide of prophecy itself? Foolish courage? Call it what ye like," Hagrid snapped, "but I'll protect her, same as I protect every creature that ever needed a friend." Something flickered in Orin's gaze. Respect, perhaps, or pity? "Then heed me, Keeper." There's a place far to the south beyond the black lake and the caverns of Morwen's Deep. An old fortress lies there, built when dragons still roamed free. Within its heart burns a crystal flame, the Ember Stone. If she touches it, the curse within her blood may be stilled. Hagrid hesitated. And what happens if I take her there? Orin's expression darkened. That depends on what she chooses to be. With that, he turned and vanished into the mist, leaving only the echo of his footsteps. Hagrid stood for a long moment, then looked down at Calith, who was watching him with those strange, knowing eyes. Well, he sighed, seems like we've got ourselves another journey. They set off again before noon, following the faint trail Orin had described. The land grew wilder as they went. Hills rose into cliffs, rivers vanished underground, and the path twisted through dark gullies where no bird sang. That night they camped among the roots of an ancient oak. Calith slept with her head on his knee, her breath warm as a forge. Hagrid stared into the stars, wondering if Dumbledore, had he still lived, would have understood what he was doing. For the first time, fear crept into his heart. Not of the Order, nor of the Ministry, but of the fire itself. Calith's power was growing. He could feel it in the air, in the pulse of the earth beneath him. And when he closed his eyes, he heard again that single word echoing through his mind. Keeper. The next morning, as dawn spread like pale fire across the sky, Calith took her first flight. Without warning, she leapt from the cliff where they rested, her wings catching the wind in a flare of gold. Hagrid shouted her name, but she soared higher, circling him once before vanishing into the clouds. Pride and terror warred within him. He had never seen anything so beautiful or so far beyond his control. When she returned at last, her scales shone brighter than ever, her wings streaked with embers. She landed beside him, pressing her head to his chest, and though she spoke no word, Hagrid knew what she meant. The journey had begun. Southward lay the Ember Stone, the fate of the first fire, and perhaps the end of them both. The road to the south was long, winding through mountains and valleys older than any map. Hagrid and Calith traveled beneath skies that changed from silver dawn to crimson dusk, crossing through lands forgotten by most living souls. The air grew colder as they went, and the stars at night seemed sharper, nearer, as if watching. Calith flew ahead, now and then, her wings flashing gold against the twilight. Each time she rose, Hagrid's heart filled with both pride and fear. She was no longer the frail hatchling he had carried through the forest. She was near the size of a horse now, her scales hard as hammered brass, her fire fierce and bright. Yet she still came to rest by him each night, curling close to the campfire like a gray cat. Fang remained loyal as ever, though he would growl uneasily when Calith's flames danced too near. Hagrid often chuckled, rubbing the hound's ears. "Don't fret, boy. She won't bite ye. Well, leastways, not on purpose." But beneath his good humor lay a deep unease. Each night as the campfire dwindled and the stars wheeled above, he saw strange lights moving on the distant ridges, shapes that glowed faintly blue or red, too steady to be stars, too silent to be torches. The Obsidian Order was hunting still. The land changed again as they journeyed farther south. Forest gave way to stony hills where the wind howled through cracks in the rock like the breath of ghosts. At times they came upon ruins, broken towers, fallen bridges, the bones of an age when dragons and men had shared the sky. Caliph would stop and stare at these places, lowering her head as though listening to voices only she could hear. One night, as they camped beside the frozen remains of an ancient fountain, Hagrid awoke to find her gone. The fire had burned to embers. Fang whined, restless. "Caliph?" he called softly. A glow answered him, soft and golden, from the far end of the ruins. He followed it, crossbow slung across his shoulder. The light grew stronger until it filled a vast, roofless hall. There stood Caliph, her wings folded, her body wreathed in flame that did not burn. She gazed upon the wall where faint carvings shimmered, dragons etched in flight circling a great flame at their center. Hagrid stepped forward, his voice low. "What is it, girl?" The carvings brightened, casting strange reflections across the stone. Then Caliph turned her head toward him, and for a heartbeat he thought he saw not one dragon but many, layered over her form like ghosts of her kind. "The fire remembers," she said softly, the voice echoing not from her throat but inside his mind. Hagrid froze. "Aye," he whispered, "I remember you saying that before." Caliph blinked slowly, her golden eyes luminous. "It remembers everything. The first breath, the first flame, the hands that tried to bind it." "Then forget the binding," Hagrid said gently. "You're free now, lass." But Caliph's gaze drifted past him toward the south. "Freedom is not enough. The fire seeks a heart. It must rest, or it will burn the world." And with that, the light faded, and she was silent once more. Hagrid stood in the darkness long after she had gone to sleep, his thoughts heavy. The words of the witch, the warnings of the centaurs, the runes of the sanctuary, all were leading to the same truth. Caliph carried more than flame in her blood. She carried the memory of creation itself, and it was consuming her. The next morning the wind changed. It came from the south now, warm and strange, carrying the faint scent of brimstone. When Hagrid looked to the horizon, he saw it at last, a mountain rising from the plains, like the spine of a sleeping giant, its peak crowned in black smoke. Morwin's Deep. The caverns below it were said to run for miles, carved by rivers of molten rock in the time before men, and within them, according to Orin, lay the fortress of the Emberstone. The final stretch was the hardest. The ground grew treacherous, riddled with fissures that breathed heat like dragon's breath. Caliph's fire flared constantly now, uncontrolled, melting the snow wherever she walked. The air shimmered around her, and her scales began to glow faintly, even in daylight. On the third night near the mountain's base, the Obsidian Order found them. The first sign was the silence. No birds, no wind, only the faint crackle of Caliph's fire. Then Fang growled, low and warning, and arrows of red light hissed through the darkness. Hagrid threw himself behind a rock, Caliph rearing up with a furious roar. Figures stepped out of the shadows, cloaked and masked, their wands blazing with crimson, the air filled with a hum of spells. "Stand down, Keeper," a voice shouted. It was Orin, though his tone had changed. Harder now, crueler. "You've gone far enough. The child belongs to us." "Ye lied," Hagrid roared, rising to his full height. "Ye said you wanted to stop the curse, not use her." "Fool," Orin hissed. "You think we'd let the first fire die in your hands? She was made to fulfill the work our ancestors began. With her power, we will rebuild the world." Caliph's wings spread wide, golden flames searing the darkness. "No," she said, her voice ringing like steel. "You will not bind the fire again." She leapt into the air, and the ground shook. Light erupted from her body, filling the ravine with brilliance. The Order's spells shattered like glass against her wings. Orin raised his wand, shouting a word that split the air, but Calith turned her gaze upon him, and his magic withered. "Go," she cried to Hagrid, though her voice was thick with sorrow. "The Emberstone awaits. You must carry the flame there." "I ain't leaving you," he shouted. "You must." The light intensified until it blinded him. He stumbled backward, Fang barking wildly. The last thing he saw was Calith rising higher, her form wreathed in fire so bright it turned the night to day. Then the world erupted. When the smoke cleared, the mountain was silent. The Order was gone, their cloaks reduced to ash. The ground glowed faintly red where their fire had burned. Hagrid staggered forward, calling her name, but there was no answer. "Calith." His voice echoed through the empty ravine. Then faintly he heard her. A whisper, not from the air, but from within the earth itself. "Keeper, the fire sleeps. Follow." He sank to his knees, heart hammering. The mountain above him trembled once as though stirred from ancient dreams. Hagrid looked toward its summit, where a faint golden glow pulsed within the smoke. "Aye, lass," he whispered, "I'll follow." He set his jaw, gathered his pack, and began the long climb into the heart of Morwin's Deep, where the Emberstone waited, and where the fate of Dragonfire, and perhaps of the world itself, would be decided. Snow began to fall as Hagrid climbed the winding path that led toward the heart of the mountain. The flakes hissed as they touched the heated stone, vanishing into mist. The mountain breathed beneath him, slow, deep, ancient, as though it were alive and merely waiting for him to reach its heart. The path was narrow and treacherous, carved into cliffs that fell away into unseen depths. Fang kept close behind, paws slipping on the wet rock, while far below, rivers of molten light glowed through cracks in the earth. Hagrid's heart was heavy. Calith's last words still rang in his mind, a whisper that would not fade. "Follow." The sky above was a swirl of storm and fire. Every now and again, he glimpsed a flash of gold among the clouds, and for a breathless moment, he would think it was her, then realize it was only the storm reflecting the memory of her flame. Still, he pressed on. As night fell, the wind rose, howling like some ghostly choir. The scent of ash grew stronger, mingled with a metallic tang that burned his throat. He rounded a bend and saw a gate, massive, wrought of black iron and carved with the shapes of dragons locked in flight. The gate shimmered faintly, held closed by a ward older than Hogwarts itself. "Reckon this must be it," Hagrid muttered. He drew the obsidian token the witch had given him and pressed it against the metal. The gate shuddered, and light rippled through its carvings. With a sound like distant thunder, it swung open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. He stepped through. The air inside was blistering hot, but not unbearable. Calith's warmth had hardened him against the heat. The cavern was immense, its ceiling lost in smoke and shadow. Pillars of basalt rose like the ribs of some sleeping beast, and veins of molten gold ran through the walls, pulsing in rhythm with the faint tremor of the ground. At the center of it all stood the Emberstone. It was not a gem, nor any stone Hagrid had ever seen. It hung in the air above a pool of fire, a crystal the size of a boulder shaped like a heart. Its surface glowed with a light that shifted between gold and crimson, breathing like a living thing. The air around it shimmered, thick with magic so old and raw it made Hagrid's skin prickle. He took a cautious step forward. "Calith?" He called softly, the flames in the pool stirred, then came a sound. Not quite a voice, not quite a roar, but both at once. The fire surged upward, forming the shape of wings, a long neck, a dragon's head wrought from living light. Calith emerged, reborn from flame. Her body was no longer of flesh and scale, but of pure gold fire, her eyes burning white. Yet even so, Hagrid knew her. The tilt of her head, the tremor in her voice as she spoke, they were the same. "You came," she said, her voice echoing through the cavern like music. Hagrid's throat tightened. I came. Thought I'd lost you." "You could not lose the fire," she said gently. "It only changes shape." He took a step closer, shielding his face from the heat. "What's happening to you, girl?" "The fire is seeking its end," she said. "For ages it has burned, waiting for a heart strong enough to bear it. Mine is failing. It must pass to another, or it will consume all." The light of the Emberstone pulsed, casting long shadows across the cavern walls. "What do you mean, pass?" Hagrid asked hoarsely. "I can't." Her gaze softened. "You already carry its spark, Keeper. When you touched me, the bond was made, but you are mortal. To bear the first fire, you must offer something in return." "I'll give anything," he said without hesitation. Calith's eyes burned brighter. "Even your heart?" "Aye." The dragon's form wavered, as though caught between fire and smoke. "Then come forward, Rubeus Hagrid of Hogwarts, keeper of the wild. Let the fire know your name." He stepped to the edge of the pool, the heat searing through his boots. Fang whined, but did not move. Calith lowered her head until her glowing snout brushed his chest. Light flowed between them, golden, blinding. Hagrid gasped as warmth flooded his body, not painful but overwhelming, filling him with memories that were not his own. Mountains rising from flame, the first dragon soaring through endless sky, fire shaping the world. He saw Calith's mother, vast and noble, her wings spread over the forest. He saw the obsidian order, their hands weaving dark runes. He saw the sanctuary fall, the valley burn, and through it all the same light, the fire of creation. Then the vision changed. He saw himself small and broken before that power, yet unafraid. He saw Hogwarts, the forest, every creature he had ever tended, each one a spark of life, precious and wild. Calith's voice echoed softly through the light. "You understand now, don't you?" "Aye," he whispered. "It ain't about control. It's about care." The dragon smiled, a sad, radiant thing. "Then the fire is safe." Her body began to dissolve into light, her form merging with the Emberstone. The crystal blazed brighter, its glow filling every crack and shadow of the cavern. "Calith," Hagrid cried, "don't go." "You are its keeper now," she whispered. "Guard it well, and remember, the fire remembers you." The light engulfed him completely. When it faded, the cavern was quiet. The Emberstone floated above the pool, calm now, its heart steady and golden. Hagrid stood before it. The glow of its flame reflected in his eyes. His chest burned faintly, not with pain but with warmth, a deep pulse that matched the rhythm of the stone. He was alone, and yet not alone. Fang pressed against his leg, whining softly. Hagrid knelt, rubbing his head. "It's all right, boy," he murmured. "She ain't gone." "Not really." He looked up at the Emberstone one last time. "Thank you, lass." When he left the mountain, dawn was breaking. The storm had passed, the sky pale and clear. The snow that had fallen during the night melted as he walked, leaving green shoots where his boots touched the ground. By the time he reached the foothills, the mountain behind him had fallen silent. Its smoke faded, its fire at peace. Hagrid turned once more to look upon it, a small smile beneath his beard. "Rest easy, Caliph," he said softly. "You're home now." He set his face north toward Hogwarts and the life waiting there, the students, the forest, and the 1,000 creatures who would one day need his care. And though the world was quiet, a faint glow lingered beneath his coat, as if a hidden spark lived still within his heart. Far above, high in the morning light, a single golden feather of flame drifted through the sky, neither ash nor ember, but something eternal. The first fire was not gone. It had simply found its keeper. And thus ended the tale of Hagrid's adventure in the Forbidden Forest, a story whispered among the trees on still nights when the moon shines gold and the wind smells faintly of smoke, as though the earth itself remembers the dragon who became light and the half-giant who loved her.